Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really digging into Puerto Rican culture by looking at its architecture. It's not just about structures, it's this vivid cultural tapestry woven over 4 centuries under Spain and then another century with American influence.
Exactly. And we're going to focus that huge history onto one incredibly persistent building, the Catedral de San Juan Bautista. Its story, the cycle of destruction, rebuilding, resilience, it pretty much mirrors the entire island's architectural journey, from, well, indigenous foundations right up to modern resilience work.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack how need, whether it was military strategy, earthquakes, or massive hurricanes, really forced these styles to evolve. From Gothic bits hidden in the cathedral to, say, sleek tropical modernism, we want to get into the DNA of this landscape.
And to do that, we really have to start at the beginning, with the Taino people. Before colonization, their communities, these Ucayques, were organized around a central plaza, the Beatty.
And their buildings, the family homes, the bohíos, and the bigger communal ones, the cañes, they were built with wood and straw, right? Really smart adaptations to the climate.
Absolutely. Though the Spanish noted pretty quickly that these materials didn't hold up well in the tropics, prone to rot and decay. But here's the interesting part. Those early Spanish settlers, just focused on surviving, they actually copied Taino building methods for their first simple cottages.
Because they worked.
Yeah.
Quick to build, good in the rain.
Yeah, exactly. Practical. But that didn't last. The Spanish crown wanted things done their way, so they started bringing in European ideas. Stone construction, those narrow colonial buildings designed to shade the streets, and of course, central courtyards, the patios.
Patios like you'd see in southern Spain. For light and air.
Precisely. Often inspired by Andalusian architecture. Essential for light and, crucially, ventilation deep inside the buildings in that climate.
And these weren't just random settlements. They were planned according to rules, weren't they?
Oh, definitely. We're talking about the Law of the Indies from 1573. It was this foundational urban planning guide. Every new town had to have a central square, a plaza, and flanking it, the 2 symbols of power, the main and Catholic church, and the government building, the cabildo or alcaldía.
Architecture as like an instrument of control.
Imposing order.
And San Juan itself, its location, the harbor, that made it strategically vital almost immediately.
Hugely important, which led directly to those massive, almost impenetrable fortifications. Fort San Felipe de Morro, Fort San Cristobal. They were built to dominate and defend.
And built over such a long time, they weren't just one style, were they?
No, not at all. That's what's fascinating. Construction spans centuries, huge budgets involved, so you see layers, the Gothic structural ideas, Renaissance symmetry, some Baroque flair, and later neoclassical elements, all mixed into these giant military complexes.
Like La Fortaleza. It started basic, right?
Yeah.
A fort in 1533.
Just a simple watchtower, really. But by the 17th century, its main job wasn't defense anymore. It got transformed into the governor's palace, dressed up with Baroque and neoclassical features to project imperial power, not just strength.
Okay, so this history of threats, constant rebuilding.
Yeah.
That leads us straight to our main example. The Catedral de San Juan Bautista, a real monument to just sticking around.
It really is. Second oldest cathedral in the Western Hemisphere, and, get this, the oldest church still in use on U.S. soil. Quite a title.
But its story isn't just about age, it's about survival, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's less a static monument, more like a survivor, constantly battling storms, human conflict. That very first wooden church from 1521 lasted only a few years. Hurricane took it out completely.
So the stone one we see now started around 1540.
Around then, yes. But the struggle just continued. The sources talk about this almost endless cycle of damage.
Like in 1598, with the English invasion, that sounded brutal.
It was. The Earl of Cumberland's troops looted the city, and the cathedral, the very symbol of their faith and permanence. Well, reports say they used it as a stable for their horses. Imagine the impact of that. Just devastating.
Wow. And as if that wasn't enough.
Nature followed up. Just 17 years later, 1615, another massive hurricane rips the roof right off, left it exposed for ages. So between looting, hurricanes, fires, earthquakes, the building we see today is really a patchwork, a result of centuries of urgent repairs, not one single design plan.
Which explains that sort of architectural puzzle. It apparently had some rare, true Gothic features, high ceilings, vaulted arches, but it looks mostly neoclassical now.
Exactly, because think about it. Gothic is intricate, requires skilled labor, constant upkeep. Hard to manage that in the Caribbean, especially when funding from Spain was inconsistent. So after a major earthquake in 1787 caused huge damage, the rebuilding leaned towards the simpler, sturdier, neoclassical style popular in the 19th century.
Makes sense, like replacing a complex Gothic vault.
Right. The original Gothic rib vault in the transept collapsed in the mid-1800s. They replaced it with a much more durable, less ornate neoclassical dome. Basically, necessity won out over the original aesthetic.
And money was always an issue, wasn't it? Construction took almost 400 years.
Nearly 4 centuries, yeah. And it often relied heavily on local money, on donors, not steady funds from the crown.
Like that privateer, Miguel Enriquez.
Yes, he actually stepped in when the cathedral was in terrible shape, storm damage, fire, even termites, and personally paid to replace the roof and floor. It shows how much the local community invested in keeping it alive, even when official support wasn't there.
And inside, beyond the architecture, it holds so much history. Ponce de Leon's tomb, relics.
It's incredible. The tomb of Juan Ponce de Leon, yeah. The remains of St. Pio, a Roman martyr, there since 1862. And relics of Blessed Carlos Manuel Rodriguez Santiago, the first Puerto Rican beatified. It's like a condensed history of the island.
And you mentioned something really surprising about education happening inside the cathedral.
Ah, yes. This is fascinating. Spain was really hesitant, maybe even scared, to grant Puerto Rico a full university. They worried it would fuel independence movements, like it had elsewhere.
So, no university. Where did people go for higher learning?
They went to the cathedral. The Dominican order and Bishop Alonso Manso set up what they called Cátedras de Gramática, basically, advanced classes right inside the cathedral chambers, teaching Latin, biology, math. One room used was even a former sacristy.
Wow, like an underground university hidden in the church.
Pretty much. A kind of educational resistance, proving the local drive for knowledge wouldn't be stopped by imperial policy.
That idea, local initiative taking over from imperial control, really picks up steam in the 19th century, doesn't it? Especially with new people arriving.
Absolutely. That Royal Decree of Graces in 1815 opened the door to non-Spanish Europeans, French, German, Corsicans. And that mix of cultures started to, well, fracture the purely Spanish architectural style. It led to new regional ways of building.
So you had the official style, and then these local blends.
Exactly. You had the formal state style, Neoclassico Isabelino.
Isabelino, named after Queen Isabella II.
Yeah.
What was that style about?
It was centered in Ponce, mostly for big public buildings, hospitals, city halls, very formal, symmetrical, massive. It was all about projecting this image of Ponce as a modern, sophisticated, orderly imperial city, showing off Spanish power, basically.
Okay, but then there's the more creative local style, Ponce Creole.
Yes, Ponce Creole is where things get really interesting. It's this fantastic blend. It takes local traditions, things like wide balconies, houses raised off the ground for cooling, and mixes them really freely with fancy European styles from the end of the 19th century, the fin de siècle. Ideas brought by those new immigrant industrialists.
Fin de siècle, like what specifically, what did that add?
Think late 19th, early 20th century European ambition. You get elaborate details from Beaux-Arts, grand entrances, classical touches, and really importantly, Catalan modernist Art Nouveau that came with Spanish immigrants after the Spanish-American War. So you see intricate, curvy ironwork, colorful decorative tiles, a much more expressive decorative feel.
Like the Parc de Bombas.
Yeah.
That red and black firehouse.
That's the absolute icon of Ponce Creole. Playful, colorful, totally unique. A perfect example of that local blending.
Okay, now we hit 1898. The U.S. takes over. And they bring their own architectural ideas, right? Like those revival styles popular out west.
They did. Mission revival, Spanish colonial revival styles, huge in California and the Southwest. And here's where it gets kind of paradoxical.
How so?
Well, the U.S. was essentially promoting this romanticized, nostalgic version of Spanish colonial architecture. They saw it as, quaint history, picturesque.
But Puerto Rican architects saw these same styles as modern.
That sounds backwards. It does, but think about how it was arriving. It was coming via American administration, American engineering, American funding. It wasn't the old, often decaying, underfunded style of the Spanish crown anymore. These were large-scale projects using new techniques, new materials.
Ah, okay. So for local architects, working in this American Spanish revival style felt like being part of progress.
Exactly. It was seen as participating in modernity, associating with the new power structure and its resources, and it influenced a whole range of things, from housing developments to even some later Art Deco designs on the island.
Right. So moving into the mid-20th century, Things really shift gear after World War II, especially with Operation Bootstrap, that big industrialization push,
Definitely. Suddenly, the big focus is efficiency, utilitarian design.
which brings in the international style, concrete and glass.
Explodes globally, yeah. That modernist focus on function over ornament. But in Puerto Rico, the climate forced a local adaptation. Tropical modernism.
And that's where architect Henry Klum comes in, a student of Frank Lloyd Wright.
That's right. Klum had to deal head-on with the intense heat, the humidity, the sun. He couldn't just import sealed glass boxes.
So what did tropical modernism do differently?
Well, it used design to work with the climate, not fight it with air conditioning. So you see deep roof overhangs to shade the walls. You see those characteristic horizontal sunscreens, the brise soli cutting glare but letting breezes through. And crucially, designing for cross-ventilation, getting air moving through the buildings naturally.
Clever. Where can we see that?
Oh, it's all over. Big university projects like at the University of Puerto Rico, iconic hotels like the Caribe Hilton. It was about functional elegance suited to the tropics.
Then the 70s hit. Economic boom, population growth, and architecture starts getting more, maybe assertive.
Yeah, that's when late modernism really takes hold with some of its more expressive and sometimes controversial styles. We see brutalism emerge.
Raw concrete, massive shapes.
Exactly. It wasn't just about using concrete. It was about its mass, its texture, its monumental scale, often used for government projects, projecting a sense of power and permanence during a time of rapid change.
Like the Roberto Clemente Coliseum or the Manila's Government Center, huge concrete structures.
Yeah.
What was the message there?
It seems it was a very conscious choice to convey stability, governmental authority, a kind of rejection of anything seen as too light or decorative. Brutalism felt solid, serious, and alongside that, you also get structural expressionism.
Where they show off the building skeleton.
Right, making the support beams, the pipes, the systems part of the visual design. Think Bioman City Hall or the Puerto Rico Convention Center. It projects this idea of technological capability, of showing how things work.
And what about today? Just regular houses being built now, what's the driving force there?
Well, today it's overwhelmingly about resilience, survival, really.
Against hurricanes and earthquakes.
Exactly. The sources point to this new standard vernacular, especially in residential areas. Reinforced concrete blocks, flat, strong roofs designed to withstand high winds and seismic stress.
That's that constant theme again, culture meeting catastrophe.
It really is, but they often still blend in traditional elements like louvered windows for airflow. So it's mixing those hard-won lessons from the past with the stark necessities of modern engineering for survival, a very pragmatic, localized response.
Which brings us back full circle to the cathedral. Still standing, still being adapted.
Still being reinforced, absolutely. After Hurricane Maria, the cathedral and some nearby historic buildings got significant FEMA funding, nearly $10.7 million for repairs. But it's complex work.
Because they have to follow strict historic preservation rules.
Extremely strict. Department of the Interior standards, you can't just patch it up. You have to preserve the historic fabric while making it stronger.
And are they building in specific protections for the future?
Oh, yes. Mitigation is a huge part of it. They're working on things like advanced roof waterproofing systems and, really importantly, installing impact-resistant panels. These can be put up quickly to protect those incredible centuries-old stained glass windows, the ones that have somehow survived everything so far from the debris in the next big storm.
So when you look at this whole long story, what's the big takeaway?
I think it's that Puerto Rican architecture isn't just old buildings. It's this living, breathing historical document. It's a place where you see Taino ingenuity, Spanish imperial designs, American industrial pushes all mashed together, often violently, by the realities of the Caribbean environment and history. It's constantly adapting.
And there's that tension, isn't there, between big outside forces pushing for one thing and the local reality pushing back.
Absolutely. Think about how those large-scale economic programs like the New Deal back then or Operation Bootstrap later promoted uniformity, efficiency like the international style, global standards.
But at the same time, that pressure created a sort of counter-reaction, a need for something uniquely local.
Definitely. It triggered this deep need for distinct regional styles like that vibrant Ponce Creole, or even today's focus on resilient local building techniques. That push and pull is key.
So that's the challenge for you, the listener. The next time you're walking around your own town or city, look closely. Ask yourself, where do you see that same conflict? That tension between global efficiency and the stubborn cultural need for local identity. Puerto Rico's story really shines a light on that universal struggle in architecture.
A powerful question to think about. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for exploring this history of resilience with us.